Hey everybody, this is Steve with Red Lantern Tour Company. Today I'll be chatting with Wade Mars of Stump Jump and Kennel. We'll be talking a little bit about some of the races he's been running and his thoughts on the Iditarod that's going on now. How's it going, Wade?
Things are really good. I'm at down with the family right now, visiting the kid and the wife, and taking a little break from mushing for a few days, and then getting ready to fly to Alaska.
Oh, nice. You're headed back up.
Yeah, we have a team running the Iditarod right now. Kaylin Davis, she's I think one above Red Lantern in front of Lisbeth there right now, and so when that team gets done racing, I'll grab them and do some training runs and run another race in Alaska later this spring.
Great. Yeah. I'm looking at the tracker now. She's in Galena.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
That's how are you? What's it like? How did you sort of decide what teams or what dogs were gonna, go down with you to Wisconsin, which ones you sort of kept in Alaska there to run
Yeah,
those?
it was kind of a hard decision. We had a lot of 2-year-olds this year, and then a pretty big group of veterans that ran Iditarod last year and stuff. And so I left kind of the little bit slower veterans with her, and the um, little bit slower 2-year-olds that could kind of do more Iditarod pace stuff. And then I brought the faster group of dogs with me. So I had, I think, 7 or 8 2-year-olds this winter with me. And then uh, 10 veterans, and then she had about the same.
Nice. Yeah, because you ran the Bear Grease
Yep.
probably about a month and a half ago or so. It was end of January there. How'd that go for you the first time doing that one?
Yeah, it went really good for me. I had kind of a slower race than I was expecting, but a lot of teams, it was a really tough race, and a lot of teams ended up having to pull out early, so we were able to pull out a second place finish.
Yeah.
I think the time that I ran it in, it was a little bit of a fluke for second place, but I won't complain about that.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a really fun race. A lot of big hills, very tough. One of the tougher 300-mile races I ran. A lot of rest there, more than most races, but I think that it's mostly necessary to have that much rest in that race. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it was tough. I was looking at it, and I know you and Ryan Reddington are friends, and he had a
Mhm.
scratch. I
Yep.
don't know where about in the race, but he's run that one before, so I think it
Yeah,
goes.
he scratched about halfway, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And how does do they the Bear Grease website isn't set up the best. I was trying to see what the
Okay.
trail actually is. Is it a loop,
Mhm.
or are you starting basically south along the lake sort of and headed up north?
Yeah, you kind of, if I remember right, you had up the lake north for quite a while, and then you get to a checkpoint that takes you out. You do a little loop around, like a little half-mile turnaround needle eye loop,
Okay.
and you head straight back to that same checkpoint. But just before you get to it, about a mile out from it, not even, you turn off and head back down the same trail. But then you only head back down the same trail for 4 or 5 miles, then you turn off again and
Gotcha.
head back across the state the other way, kind of. So more, I think, more towards the lake
Sure.
shore on that side. So that was an interesting part for the dogs, to get almost back to a checkpoint, turn off, and
Mm-hmm.
then be headed back to another checkpoint that in the end would have been like a 60-mile run. But when we turned off, it only ended up being a lot shorter run.
Right.
So the dogs were really kind of like, and then we turned off and they were like, all right. So, I think that's the part where I lost a lot of time on Ryan Anderson there,
Yeah.
was, his dogs knew what was up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They're kind of seasoned vets. The Andersons running that race
yeah.
from what I've read. And um, are you so when you're, doing those loops and coming back on, were you passing any teams going the other direction?
Oh yeah, we passed quite a few teams head on, and I was running kind of right with Aaron Letchering and Sarah there, so they were uh, they were right in front of me when they left. They left 10 or 15 minutes ahead of me, and then I caught up to them the first part of that run. Aaron later passed me back, and Sarah kind of stuck pretty close behind me most of that run. So, but we passed a ton of teams head on. I passed Ryan Anderson head
Yeah.
on. He was still behind me at that point, and Arrow Wallen and Colleen and all them. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And I imagine your team, I mean, your kennel was in Willow, correct? When you were in
Yes.
Alaska? On
Hmm.
those trails, like you guys are all sharing those trails, and when you're out training, you're likely to be running sort of head on with another team. Like it's not something that's entirely new for a dog team, right? To
Yeah.
with another
Yeah,
team.
my dogs are pretty used to passing head on. The spot we had in Willow was pretty secluded for us. We had a couple other people on our swamp, but we were kind of the main ones on the trail system that I use. So we didn't see a lot of teams out there, but they definitely have experience passing and did really good with it. So
Nice. And then, yeah, you had another second place finish at the Can-Am
I did.
a week
Yeah.
ago in Maine.
What's that?
A week ago in Maine. Was that not this past weekend, but the weekend before?
Yep. So I actually had, I don't know if you knew, but I ran the Klondike Dog Derby in between those two and the
Oh,
UP
cool.
200. The Klondike Dog Derby, I got 11th in. It was kind of a sprint race, like a 40-mile speed race. It was pretty
Yep.
fun. The first leg of it was really easy and fast, and then the second leg, the wind picked up and just blew the trail in, and it was pretty intense, especially for the sprint mushers out there trying to get their leaders to find trails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch, watch their tracks go all over the place.
Mhm.
um, and then the UP 200 was a week or a week and a half later. I got second there as well.
Yeah,
Um,
good job.
again, behind Ryan Anderson.
Your
um,
emphasis there.
yeah, so yeah, he had a really nice team this year. Obviously, did a great job training him up and getting him prepped and stuff. So hard guy to beat. In the UP, I got the first run. I lost about 25 minutes chopping a tree out of the trail that had fallen over. It's a really bad windstorm, and then Brian beat me by about 19 minutes. So
Oh,
it would have been a very fun finish. I think it would have been a race right neck to neck
oh,
there. So that would have been interesting to see how play out. But yeah, then um, last week I went over to the Can-Am and got second again. This time to a different person.
mhm.
So
And pretty close, right? I don't know how
it was
that
very
runs
close.
when
Yeah.
it's like proper racing at the end to the finish line.
Oh yeah, very hard. So I kind of took off sandbagging really hard. The reports that I got from the Can-Am were just really monster hills and soft, sugary trails and stuff. So I was like, okay, I want to keep my team strong and have energy and power to get through those sections. And it just kept being one easy run after the other.
Mhm.
There was some tough terrain in there, and they said that there was just abnormal. The way the trail was set up this year was really hard and fast, really nice. They did a great job on it. And so I was like sandbagging, but I'm like, I better start catching up if this trail's not going to get tough, you
Yeah.
know? So I lost the first run by 20 or 30 minutes to the winner. And then the second run, I lost by 5 or 6 minutes. And then I won the last three runs. I won the last run by, I think it was 18 minutes or 17 minutes.
Yeah.
And missed him by 1 minute. It was pretty intense, and for there, there was the trail was set up really good for the dogs, but for the driver, like a big part of how I make up a lot of time on my races is running up the hills. And the trail there was too soft underneath the crust. So every time I stepped off to run, I just go into knee deep snow.
Sure.
So like there was no extra up the hills. We were just all kind of doing the same thing.
All
And
dog.
usually, yeah, all dog power. Yeah. Usually I'm able to make up a lot of time doing that running. So that kind of hurt a little bit on catching him on the last run, but that was all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes for an exciting finish there where you're just a minute and a half behind.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Um, Well, congratulations on those second place finishes. Hopefully, if you plan on running them next year, you'll scoot up there in the standings and come in first in one of those.
Yeah, that'd be nice. See what
Uh,
happens.
yeah. Um, let's change gears here to Iditarod. Is it a little weird to be watching from Wisconsin and running these other races and, kind of changing up how you've been operating the last few years?
Yeah, so I mean the Can-Am started the same day as Iditarod. So of course while I was racing, I wasn't really paying any attention to what Iditarod had going on. And then, the day after the Can-Am, I took a little peek at what was happening, and then we had a 2 or 3 day drive back to Wisconsin, and then a day of unpacking and repacking, and I sent my truck and trailer to Alaska already. And got everything settled there and left down to here. So I haven't done a lot of looking at Iditarod, which is probably a good thing for me because it drive me crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting not being there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's looking like, this year, Seth and I were talking beforehand. We're, saying, oh, we're thinking it might be a slow race with how the trail might be, if it's going to be soft. And they seem to be just cruising out there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their finishing time is going to be. I haven't looked into it hard enough to see what Brent's going to pull off. He's going to break the record or not, but the intensity of the run rest schedule, no matter how fast they're moving, the intensity of that run rest schedule, both him and Dallas really pushed the pace this year. So it's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yep. And those two, they are, I'm looking here, about 100 miles up on the next person. They're both resting now. They both got to White Mountain
Right.
this afternoon, morning, Alaska time. And, they really pushed the pace. And I think Brent's got like a 2.5 hour lead on him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they've been running a good race, and I'm interested to see how Brent comes out of that White Mountain checkpoint with some, in years past, has had issues there getting out
Yeah.
cleanly and getting the dogs back up and going, kind of like what you were saying, turning them back on. And what is that difficult at that checkpoint? Does it kind of just depend how the dog team is feeling?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to say. It. I've personally never had the issue of leaving there. I have had, my rookie year where it was kind of struggle a little bit.
Mhm.
But, I had this awesome leader that was just pounding the harness and slamming to go, and got the whole team motivated slowly, and they all kind of took off together and got moving really nicely. But, if you don't have at least that one dog that's just super motivated and driven to get up and rally no matter what, it makes it really difficult to get things going. And, Brent, I think, has a lot of brand new dogs in his team since that happened. I think, after that happened, it seemed like he took a year off or something and reset and kind of did a
Yeah.
bunch of breeding and stuff like that. So I think, the only way that it might hit him is if he gets somehow that way mentally himself and it plays off to the dogs. So, hopefully he steps out there with confidence and just gets up and rips.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, that kind of thing playing in the back of your mind can be a huge issue, but obviously he has a lot of confidence to be where he is right now and stuff. So I think he'll be fine. The dogs looked amazing coming into White Mountain, so
Yeah.
can't take it away from him there.
No, the whole time they've looked amazing. He's put together a really impressive run. And, talking to that confidence, it probably doesn't help that the person right behind him is Dallas, having won 5 times, and then, someone who's been in this position before and has still been able to chase down whoever's in front of them. So
Right. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a long ways, but 77 miles, especially that 77-mile stretch, is a really long ways, and a lot of curveballs can be thrown at you in that stretch of trail. So it still can be interesting if something happens out there. So, but I think that Brent, he trains 100% in nasty conditions all the time, breaking trail, bad wind, It's kind of where he's from and what he's done. So I don't look for even a storm to give him really any trouble. I think his dogs are ready for that. He's ready for that. So
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like the hazards or sort of, sort of obstacles that you need to deal with as you're running from White Mountain to Nome. That's 77 miles. Most people are going to do that just in a straight run. There's not much
yeah,
infrastructure. It's safety. It's just a roadhouse. During a
right.
storm, it's a decent spot to hunker down, but most people are making that run straight through. Like, what are you looking to avoid, hopefully?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can avoid on that run if it's thrown at you. So it's some of the worst things I've seen is, when we take off out of White Mountain, we go down a river for a while, then we hop on a flat, very mogully stretch until we get to the hills. And sometimes that mogully stretch can be pretty nasty with moguls. That can, beat up sleds, and it takes a toll on yanking back and forth and getting through there, but not too bad. And then once you get up on top of the hills, a lot of times they're really big hills and there's kind of streams running in the valleys and stuff. And sometimes you come down off of one of those hills into water and it can be pretty deep.
Mm.
So that's sometimes pretty challenging getting through those water holes and stuff off and on. And then the hardest part is you come out of that section of cold water running sometimes, and it's not always that way, but that's the worst I've seen is deep water to cross. And then you come down into the blowhole, and you cross the blowhole a little before safety. Can't remember exactly how long it is through there, but sometimes it's glare ice and the wind's blowing really hard and there's nothing you can do to stop yourself from going sideways until you hit a beach or
Yep.
driftwood, or as we've seen with Jeff King in the past, and had trouble there with that kind of thing. So, those kind of things can pop out. I remember a few years ago, I pulled into the shelter cabin there um, before going into the blowhole, and a couple native guys stuck their head out. And they said, "Come on in and have a nap." And I said, "No, I'm going to keep going." And they said, "You're an idiot. Why would you go into that?" They're like, "I'm headed for Nome." And they're like, "Us too, but tomorrow." And I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
we'll see you there." So, yeah, it can be very brutal in there to where even the locals are like, "Nope, no, thank you."
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
wait it out. So, and then you come into safety, of course, is usually pretty nice in that area across there. And you got Cape Nome, which is, pretty big climb. But it seems like at that point, the dogs are just, they're in the mode to go,
Yeah.
once you're there, you can have trouble. There's been people who've had trouble in that section before, but it's 99% of the time you're just in go mode and rolling. But between there and Nome, of course, you come down on the ice, and I've seen a lot of overflow between Cape Nome and the finish line in Nome. So that's always something that could happen there as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the Bering Sea looks like right now. And
I'm
the
not
last
sure.
time I was out there in 2020, it was, I feel like the first time I flew out there, and so, like breakup was in full force. There was
Hmm.
hardly any sea ice,
Yep.
which was kind of crazy to see. And I wonder what it's looking like right now out there. That could be an issue, or if it's all sort of intact still, and they'll be able to, run over that sea ice for that final stretch.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be pretty good. Um, we seen, what was it, the last time we went to Nome, we had that Elam 11 that went across and got into some really deep
Yeah.
water. So, there's things like that that could play into how this race turns out. But I feel like the ice will probably be pretty good. That usually sticks around a long time. And there by Nome, if it's bad, they can go up on the road or next to the road there. So worst comes to worst anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Going back to the checkpoint at White Mountain, it's the final like mandatory 8 hour rest. It's,
Hmm.
resting before that final 80 or so mile run into Nome. What are you doing when you get in there for the dog team to get them ready for that final run?
I think that obviously same as any checkpoint, good meal, good food, nutrition, and checking out the health of the dogs. One thing that's always big for me in any checkpoint, but especially that one because you have such a big stretch in front of you of big hills and really windy conditions and everything is, I'll have the vets always go through very thoroughly and check joints and hearts and lungs and everything like that, and just make sure that everybody's tip top on their list, and work on anything that needs, any minor things that can be worked on, and make sure that we drop any dogs or that need to be sent home, um, so that you're not taking a one that's compromised out into those conditions. So
Sure.
those are kind of the most important things there, or the routine things anyway. The most important things are probably for to get your chores done and get away from the dogs, because 8 hours is a great opportunity for them to recharge your battery, get a lot of sleep, and come out of there feeling well rested and ready to rumble. And same for the musher. So it's always a trick of doing enough with the dog team to make sure that they're healthy to get to know them, but doing it fast enough that both you and the dogs get plenty of sleep, so you're well rested coming out of there and racing.
Right. That was
So
kind of my next question is what are you doing for yourself in that 8 hours? It's probably
yeah,
sleeping, right? Getting a little food and taking a nap.
yeah. The first thing we got to do when we get there is chug a bottle of water so we can pee in a cup. and then yeah, I always scarf a lot of food and then get as much sleep as I possibly can. Try to look a little bit better when I go to the finish line. um, no, but I've had some close races going to Nome too, so it's like you get out of the checkpoint and you really got to run hard and work. I've come across the finish line almost collapsing before to keep Pete Kaiser behind me one year and stuff.
Yeah.
So it can definitely be an intense last stretch if you have someone close to you, especially if they're going a little faster. So the biggest mistake I ever made in White Mountain was I ate and drank a whole bunch of caffeine, which I don't use caffeine all year really, except for Iditarod or dog racing. And I ate and drank a whole bunch of different things with caffeine in them right before I went out to do my dog chores. And I got out on the river and I was just so excited. I'm like, I gotta let the dogs warm up. They took an 8 hour break. They need a slow warm up. I'm like, but I want to run. And then halfway to Nome, I'm crashing on my face, trying to make it. So I learned my lesson on that one.
Yeah. Easy on the caffeine in White Mountain.
Yeah, you got to wait a couple hours till you get out of there.
Right, exactly. You still got a decent run ahead of you.
Yep. Yep, definitely.
You were talking earlier with Brent being in White Mountain and sort of being confident and how, one time you were there, you had your rookie year had a really good lead dog who was kind of setting the tone. How much do the dogs read into like the demeanor of you as like the pseudo leader of the team? Does that play into how they react to situations or things of that nature?
Yeah, I think, definitely plays into it for sure. And I think somebody like Brent, especially, just the connection he has with the dogs, he does so much camping with them and so much on the trail time with them more than, I think he probably does 2 or 3 times as much training as I do.
Mhm.
So the connection with the dogs there is insane.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that my connection's worse or anything, but it's just different.
yeah,
And I feel like, those dogs have him on point for sure. And will definitely read off of his, I can guarantee you when Brent comes out of there, it's gonna be nothing but excitement,
yeah,
and probably a lot of positive energy.
yeah.
Um, unless he's, getting in his own head or Dallas got in his head or something, something like that, which is possible. But I look for him to just come out of there jacked and amped and ready to rumble. And I feel like the dogs will feed off of that a lot and get rolling. Um, I look for him to not have any problems for sure. But it's possible.
Possible. Anything this
Yeah,
stretch, anything's kind of possible out there. Um,
definitely.
do you think Dallas has a chance to catch him? based on just, even if it's
A
nothing,
fluke.
like Brent having a no bad start. Like, do you think he can be fast enough to catch him in the next 80 miles, being about two and a
Well,
half back? That seems like a lot of time if Brent comes out there clean and is the dogs.
yeah, I mean, if Brent has a clean takeoff and a clean run, there's no way that Dallas can run 2 hours faster just having that much faster of a dog team. I mean, no offense to Dallas, but he doesn't have the fastest dog team on the trail, anyways. That as far as high end speed and traveling speed goes, obviously he's had the fastest Iditarods for many years. But as far as like racing for a run speed, I'm not sure that he has that top end as much as I would say Brent probably even has more.
Sure.
But at this point in the race, it's all about management and how the team came together, etc. So if Brent's come off on this run and have a slow run, and Dallas's are still strong and have a fast run, 2.5 hours is possible for sure. For sure. I think I've made that up on people, and I think I've had people make that up on me before. So it's definitely possible. And we seen Jeff Steele. He was what, 6 hours ahead of Dallas,
Yeah.
that one year.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was obviously he had an issue.
Hmm.
We're talking about not having an issue.
Yep.
um, but yeah, I mean, it is possible, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm leaning that direction as well. I just don't, you got to be
Yeah.
cruising, and there's got to be some real, you know, paw dragging on Brent's end for to make up that much time. But I guess
Right.
we'll see in a little bit here. It's Brent's probably got 5 more hours of rest at White
Yep.
Mountain. I feel like what's the fastest you've ever made that run from White Mountain to Noman?
I'm not sure. I've done it pretty quickly a few times, but I couldn't tell you the number off the top of my head. I've won the Safety to Gnome award a few times and
Yep.
um, had pretty good runs across there, but had really bad runs. The last time I went across there was a really bad run.
Yep.
So it can happen. And I walked across there really slow the last time I went across. So it is possible that the team just comes off that 8 lethargic and blah, and
Mhm.
kind of goes across the whole run that way. It is possible.
Yeah.
Um, the thing about Dallas and Brent is they're both like as far as humans and athletes go, they're both beasts, and both of them are going to run up every single hill, and
Yep.
both of them are going to ski, pull, and pump on every other section of that trail. They're going to be
Sure.
giving it everything they have. And I would say, maybe Dallas would have a chance because he's such an athletic and hardworking guy, but I don't think Brent's gonna let him have anything on that. I
Yeah.
think he's gonna be right there working just as hard or harder, So
Yep. I think Brent's been waiting for this opportunity for a little while here.
that's for
And
sure.
I think he's going to be working as hard as anyone to get across that finish line in first place. So,
Yeah, definitely,
um,
definitely.
you have any other thoughts on the race about how it's running, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised that these are the only two guys competitive mushers in the race this year. It seems like there's such a huge gap, it's crazy. It was obviously a very tough trail and a very tough race to knock that many teams back, and it's humbling to see, second place last year, Aaron Burmeister, driving what, 9 dogs over
Yep.
100 miles behind or something,
Yeah.
first and second. It's insane to see those things. I was joking with Nick Petit today, and I said, "Man, look at that gap we could be sitting in right now, just relaxing." um, but you never know. We probably would have been behind Burmeisters
Yep.
with 7 dogs.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting race to watch this year. It's super spread out between the front two, and it seems like my team back there in the back has just been getting hammered with one storm after the other. That seems like the group in front of them keeps missing them, and then they get hammered with them, and it's like, oh man.
Yep.
So it's been a crazy race for everybody, I think, for sure. It's been interesting.
Yep. And I think crossing that finish line for everyone. Hopefully the people who are still in it are going to be able to, make it there to Nome by Friday or Saturday and not have to scratch along the way. Because it sounds like
Yeah.
everybody's endured quite a bit. So
hmm Yeah, it's cool to see Dallas have a second team racing too competitively. That Chad Stoddard, right's running his second team,
yep.
and that's pretty cool to see. I've always wondered why the CVs didn't have a second or third team in their racing, and so I'm happy to see that they finally did that, have another competitive team in the race, and
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Chad's sitting there third place. You could have
Yeah.
second and third, first and third, whatever it is.
All right.
All out of one kennel. That's impressive.
It is impressive for sure. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was impressive when Seth and I both got top 20 out of my kennel.
Yeah.
So
Right.
both top 5. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
For sure. Top 3 maybe.
Yep. No, both of them running a really good race. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that hits it for Iditarod stuff, unless you got anything else. You can maybe talk a little bit about what other races you got coming up.
Yeah, we're gonna run the Alpine Creek race up on the Denali Highway there in Alaska in April, beginning of April. Hope all the mushers come out and check it out that aren't going to Kobuk. And they have both a 200 and a 300-mile race. I haven't decided if I'm gonna run the 2 or the 300 yet, but yeah, I'm excited to see that team after they get back from Iditarod. And of course, I know the veterans pretty well, but she's got quite a few 2-year-olds and yearlings up there that I'm excited to check out and see how they're looking. So
Cool.
yeah.
Is she taking care of those dogs in Willow for you? No,
She's in Fairbanks actually.
in Fairbanks. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, her and her boyfriend have a house up there. They have some of their own sled dogs actually. A couple of the dogs that ran the race were theirs. And they do mostly recreational mushing otherwise, but
Sure. Cool. That's hopefully they're able to finish at Nome there. It'll be cool to
yeah, I
see.
think so. I talked to her today on the cell phone in Galena where she's at. She was pretty upbeat and happy with the team and excited to continue on. So hopefully she keeps with it and gets her done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Wade, good luck in the Alpine Creek. And good luck to Kaylin here as she tries, getting herself out of Galena and headed toward Nome. And
Yep.
yeah, thanks for jumping on with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Cool. For those watching, if you want to learn more about Wade and his team, please check them out at stumpjumpandkennel.com. And you can check us out at redlanterntourco.com if you're joining for these video podcasts. If you're joining us on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe and drop a comment letting us know what you'd like to see next. We appreciate it, and we'll see everybody soon.